Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second presentation in CUAHSI's 28th Spring Cyberseminar series on quasi-water data services for supporting scientific research and education. Today we have our own senior engineer, Mark Henderson. He'll be giving a presentation on cloud hosting, water science data for collaborative research. Take it away, Mark.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining. As Liz said, this is the Cyberseminar on cloud hosting water science data for collaboration. My name is Mark, I'm a senior engineer at CUAHSI, and hopefully this will be interesting for you. Just to go over what we're going to talk about here, just going to recap a couple things from last week's presentation, which I think many of you were on, which is just to talk a little bit about CUAHSI, a little bit about just the data management lifecycle itself, and then we're going to go pretty deep into HydroShare, starting with an overview, but then going into a series of demos that should illustrate how you can use HydroShare, and also go into a little bit about why you would use a system like HydroShare for storing and sharing and collaborating with your data. So just real quick, what is CUAHSI? We're a nonprofit consortium of 130 academic institutions, and we want to strengthen collaboration, develop and deliver data models, and promote education in the hydrologic sciences. We do this by putting on these webinars, but also workshops, in-person meetings, trainings, and we develop and maintain a series of data and model services, including what we're going to go over today, which is HydroShare. So if you remember from last week, or if you weren't part of last week, we can just go over this concept here, which is just the data management lifecycle, starting in the upper left here with research question, going around looking for data that might be useful to you. Then you go into what's called your data management plan, which is its own little cycle of collection, description, analysis, recollection, and storage, which is central to that. You would archive that data, then formally publish that data, and then feed that back in to the research question. So how do people do this on the internet writ large? Sites like YouTube or Facebook, Instagram, but also Dropbox and Google Drive all have sort of models for doing this. To take, in the instance of YouTube, video data and publish that to the world, but also share that with other users who you might be collaborating with. Dropbox is another example where you can put some data there and then give, you can see the icons on the right there, different types of access to different types of people. You might want to give read-only access or read and write access to those. And likewise, Facebook. All of these have different places on the scientific to social spectrum of how you might share these things, but they all have a lot in common in terms of just publishing data, sharing data, and collaborating on data. The problem with hydrology and a lot of the geosciences in particular is that, unlike YouTube, which is only video, the data and models used by hydrologists are incredibly diverse, which means you can have time series data, geographic data, multidimensional space-time data, and then all sorts of different models and instances of those models, which vary greatly as far as that goes. So what we have is something called HydroShare, which is a way to take those data and publish them, supporting all the different types of resources and the like. It's centered around file storage, but then there's all this value-added functionality, such as the metadata, API access to those data, an ability to create web apps and attach them on and extend the functionality of HydroShare if you have a certain use case or a certain type of data that you want to support that's maybe proprietary or other such things to you and your use case. And then there's some basic social functions, and then a way to actually publish your data and get a DOI to reference in a paper and things like that. In HydroShare, what they're called in HydroShare is a resource, and I've been encouraged to just point to other projects that maybe refer to these as items or projects or just data in general. What a HydroShare resource is a value-added collection of data and metadata. So it's a way to upload and then describe the data that you're uploading in a way that is collaborative. So you can manage who has access, and you can share that either publicly, make it only discoverable via metadata only, or publicly put it out there. And you can also have private resources as well. Moving forward, I'll probably just use the term data to talk about these because resource can be confusing for people, but the proper nomenclature inside HydroShare is you have a HydroShare resource, which is this collection of data and metadata used for your project. So inside of HydroShare, there's a number of data types, starting with on the left on the bulleted lists there, there's a composite data type, a generic data type, but then there's geographic, so you can have a HydroShare resource that is centered around Esri shapefiles that you would upload, and there's intelligence built into the system that will extract coverage and spatial metadata from those shapefiles. It has NetCDF support. It has modeling support, both in the model program and model instance categories, and then specific models like a SWOT or a ModFlow model instance. You can just have a base script, and then there's support for time series data as well. So just to go over what we're going to look at in HydroShare, I'm just going to go over the basic interface here, and we're going to see the Discover, the Collaborate, Apps page, Help, Your Resources, and then we're going to go into an example about uploading. So here's the HydroShare interface. It's just at hydroshare.org. I'm logged in as my user, and you can see starting from the left here, we have the ability to look at my resources. And this is my HydroShare content. And then there's a Discover page, which is your search page. There's Collaborate, which is for groups, which are collections of users, all centered around a specific goal or project. There's the HydroShare apps. Now, these are both quasi-developed and third-party developed applications that extend HydroShare. So HydroShare GIS gives you mapping capabilities that aren't part of the HydroShare core. There's Jupyter Hub, which you'll learn more about in the next seminar, and a few more. There's an extensive help and support section, and then finally just overall, I guess, metadata about HydroShare itself built over here. So if we go back to think about the data life cycle, after your research question, one of the things that you're going to do is just look for the available data and see what's out there. HydroShare makes this possible by providing this discovery interface here. So there's a number of ways that you can search. You can just do a free text search. If we look for data archiving, for example, inside of HydroShare, you can see the third result in the list here is Liza's presentation from last week, which she had uploaded as a HydroShare resource. There's also ways to filter down by temporal coverage. So you can look for hydrologic data that's within a certain time frame. There's also easy faceting over here on the left. So if you want to see, for example, only David Tarbotton's resources, you can click on that and it would filter down the whole list to just those. And then there's also, in addition to the list view, there is this map view, which will load up an interactive map showing where all those data are and give you the ability to zoom into a cluster, for example. These red lines show the box coverage of those data, and then you can click and actually be taken from this discovery page directly to a data set and read up about it. And as you can see inside there, there's all your coverage metadata and the like. So that provides an easy way to find hydrologic data that may be pertinent to what you're working on. And that's the first part of the data lifecycle. Now we're going to go into the next part, which is now you've collected some data and you want to create a HydroShare resource and begin working with it inside the HydroShare system. So we would go back to the My Resources page, and over here on the left, I'm just going to click Create New. Now, I had mentioned all the different types of HydroShare data types that are available here, and as you can see, when you go to Create Resource, you can click into here, and you have available all the different types that I had mentioned before. So if you had a collection of Esri shapefiles, you would probably select this one and then upload them. What we're building out now is this concept of a composite resource, which will facilitate the need for having a project that contains shapefiles, but also some time series data, also some PDFs, anything that would support the project can go in here. And instead of treating the entire data set as something that needs metadata applied to it, you would treat each file in the composite resource. So it's basically just a big grab bag of data that you would want to do. So I would say something like, just want to grab the title of this presentation. I'll do the same thing that Liza did, and I'll just upload this presentation file. So you go here, and you can drag and drop files into this area, or just click to upload. It takes any file type. There's certain file types that are going to be treated special based on the metadata they have available, but you can upload anything to a HydroShare resource. Furthermore, if your institution or your project supports iRods, you can log in there. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but I just wanted to point that out. So from here, I'm just going to click Create Resource and wait a second as it uploads my PowerPoint file. And you will see in a second that it's going to create a new HydroShare resource with this PowerPoint and the title that I assigned to it. And it also gives me this notification here up at the top. So just to make anything public in HydroShare, there's a few requirements here. So it's going to want an abstract, keywords, and then beyond that, it's going to want a title and some content files. So these are the four pieces that create a publishable resource that gives you the ability to make something public in the HydroShare world. So what we'll do is we'll just satisfy those requirements. We're going to click this edit button over here. And I'm just going to quickly go to here where I've pasted in the abstract for this seminar. I'm going to put Cyberseminar into the keywords, save the changes, and then right away we have a notification. This resource can be published or made public. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that public. That is to say, if you want to download the slides for this talk, you can. And you can right now if you wanted to. So I mentioned before, after this point, what you're going to want to do is sort of sweeten the data set that you have by applying metadata to it. HydroShare makes this easier on you by knowing things about different types of file types that you might upload, or knowing different things about data sets. So if you upload netcdf data or a geotiff, or again the Esri shape files, it's going to pull out the coverage data from, or the coverage metadata from your data set and immediately apply it in HydroShare. So you don't need to go in and draw a box. It's just going to know about that. That's only for certain types of metadata, but we found that to be really helpful. To get your resource fully ready for publication, you're going to want to, again, fill out those metadata, manage any access control to the resource. If you have collaborators that you want to share not only the data itself, but the ability to edit the data or edit the metadata, you can do that by giving them right access to your HydroShare resource. You're going to want to look at licensing. You're going to want to give your funding agency credit, of course, and you're going to want to publish the paper and get a DOI. Sorry, publish the data, get a DOI so you can reference it in your paper and submit for publication. As far as the metadata go, we have conformed around the Dublin core, which are the 15 or so pieces of metadata that are described in this image. It's just a standard, and there's obviously competing standards, but Dublin core, almost any funding agency is going to be happy with the fact that you use Dublin core to ascribe metadata to your data sets. And if you don't know, metadata is just information about data. So it's the 5 W's and the 1 H of the data that you've collected. And it's like this quote here: just don't underestimate your ability to forget details about a study. So it's also helpful for you to just go back and remember what you were thinking, what you were doing while you were collecting the data itself. So we're going to go back over to our upload here. So there's a couple modes here. There's view mode and edit mode. So we're just to switch back to view mode, just to show you. This is almost sort of like your preview. So this is what the public is going to see. And if you have edit access, if you're an owner or a collaborator on a resource, you would click on this pencil to go to edit mode and then scroll down here. At this point in the presentation, I just want to remind people that they are welcome to submit questions and more or less kind of interrupt me as I go if you have questions about any of this. And if I miss any questions, I hope that Liz will tug on my sleeve and remind me to answer some of them. So feel free to ask questions. Otherwise, we can just ask questions at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here. And let's say I just want to add the location of the CUAHSI office to this resource, just so we have a little bit of point coverage here. What we're going to do is we're going to click on the file itself, because what we have is a composite resource, and the metadata are applied to the files in a composite resource rather than to the entire HydroShare resource itself. So we're going to click on the PowerPoint file and then scroll down here to file metadata. So I'm going to apply a title and a keyword to the file itself. Save those, and I'll put a point coverage on here, and I'm not going to get it super close, but I'll just zoom in just to show you what I did here. If you have latitude and longitude on the point coverage, if you click on the map icon over here, you get this nice map interface that allows you to go in, and I'm just going to say it's somewhere near Boston, sure. and save that. Again, it's happy to tell you that you can publish any of this. If you wanted to add the funding agency, you have fields to do your award title, your award number, the agency URL, etc. I won't bore you by looking up the title and award number for this work, but you would be able to put it there. There's also extended metadata that perhaps an application, a third-party application may use, or other types of NetCDF files have special extended metadata that you can put in here. There's ability to link this to other sources or other resources. These are basically just URLs that you would put in, or just information that you would put in about this. And there's all the different Dublin core relations that are available here. So we're trying to simplify the Dublin core implementation for you. And then finally, you can add authors and contributors and collaborators to your data. That leads us right into managing access. So you can, the best analogy here is probably something like Google Drive or Dropbox. You can share your data with another HydroShare user or another group on HydroShare. You can make it public, which means that anybody can discover and download the resource on the Discover page and also download and use your data. You can make it discoverable, where people can discover it but can't download the data. And then you can also make it shareable, which lets people share it. I believe that's just on by default. All public resources are shareable. So the way you do that inside of HydroShare is just to come up here, back in edit mode, and then you have this icon, which is the person with the plus next to it. You would click on that, and if you've used Google Drive or anything like it, this should be fairly familiar looking to you. And what you would do, let's say we want to invite Liza to view. Liza can view, add, and let's say we want Tony, who is your next presenter and also a panelist here, can edit, sure. And you click on that. And now they would get notifications that that had been shared with them. And you can go close that out and go here. If you wanted to make your own group, let's say we want to make the CUAHSI Cyberseminar group inside of HydroShare. You would go to the Collaborate page, click on Create Group, and always check for typos, and just go ahead and create that. And what groups give you is a more formal way of gathering a bunch of users together to work on a project. And inside here, you can see nothing's been added to the group yet, but there's a resource listing within that group. There's a list of the members of the group. For now, it's just me because I just created it. And then just information, kind of like a news feed of recent activity from the group. So what I'll do back on my resource again is add this group as well to the access control list. It shows up immediately. You can click that, and we'll say that anybody in that group can view this resource. Granted, it's a public resource and anybody can view it, but if it were not, then this group would be able to view it, or any members of this group. And I believe, see, now you can see it showing up in the recent activity. You can see it in the resource list for the group. And were I to invite more members, you would see more members of the group there. So we're pretty deep into the data lifecycle now. You know, imagine that collaboration had been going on for a while. People have been sharing information, collecting more data, giving each other feedback about the data, and now you're ready to formally publish this data. HydroShare gives you the ability to do that fairly easily. And again, it's all just on that same resource viewing and editing page. So we're going to go back to this PDF resource, and this world icon is what we're going to want to click on here. So there's a number of things to keep in mind here. First off, if you're just looking to find out what your DOI might be in the future, so while you're writing your paper, you just want to put it in there, there's information a little bit, maybe a third of the way down the page, that shows you when permanently published, this research will have a formal DOI and will be accessible at the following URL. So it actually gives you what your DOI is going to be before you even think about publishing it. And I'm stressing this because publishing and what they call minting a DOI is a permanent action. So you can never unpublish something, and that's actually part of the data retention agreement that HydroShare has. So when you're ready, and when you're really ready, you would click here, get a big warning and a big agreement they have to look at, and which of course you would read very carefully. And then you would click here to accept, click on that, and then it gives you one last, are you sure? Are you really sure you're ready to publish this? This is permanent. You can't change it or take it down once you've done this. You would click publish there, which I'm not going to do because I'm not going to publish my presentation and get a DOI for it. But you would, because you're going to be doing a lot of awesome research and data collection. To illustrate this point, and to sort of give a human face to the data life cycle, we have this Stephen Hall story. So if you start on the lower left and sort of work clockwise around, you can see that Stephen really did follow the data life cycle. Collecting it, submitted for reviews, shared it within HydroShare, published his data in HydroShare, received a DOI, and then was able to cite the published HydroShare data in his paper. So that's a nice success story about all this. So in summary, HydroShare is a new web-based system for advancing model and data sharing. It supports multiple types of I'm going to say multiple types of data, hydrologic and otherwise, but it's primarily used for hydrologic data. Has a flexible discovery interface, supports model sharing and model execution via the apps. Next week, we'll go into a little bit about how it supports access to high-performance computing via Jupyter Hub, provides social collaboration, provides linking to other data, other resources, and even other systems itself. And as we mentioned, this is applicable to other geosciences as well, behind hydrology, but HydroShare is primarily hydrology. So at this point, I want to pause and just find out if people have any other questions.
If you have any questions, please type them to the questions chat box, and then we'll read them out loud.
Thank you, Liz.
It looks like we don't have any questions right now. So.
Okay. All right. Well, then I just wanted to take this moment then and just remind people about some of the other CUAHSI programs and services that we provide. Maybe while people are typing up questions, I can just go through these, and then if there are questions at the end, I'm happy to field them. So.
Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. Evo has a question. Can you please type in your question to the chat box? So we'll give him or her a few minutes to type it in, and then I'll read out the question.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Yes, we provide guides.
Oh, yeah. So the question is, what would be the advantage of using HydroShare to GitHub, for example?
So the advantage is that the type of data that you can upload different types of data to GitHub. It's true. But GitHub's primary strength is in sharing and editing and collaborating on code. You could upload an etcdf file to GitHub, but GitHub wouldn't necessarily understand the embedded metadata within it. So what you have is something like GitHub and HydroShare that knows about and understands specific types of data and specific types of file formats that you would use in the hydrologic sciences in particular. And then from there, you would be able to collaborate with other hydrologists or other people in that field or other people that relate to your project in doing so. So it's the same argument that you'd make about YouTube, where YouTube's data is rather homogeneous, and then in HydroShare, it's a much more heterogeneous set of data types.
All right, thank you, Mark. That's the only question that came in so far. So.
Okay, cool. So I'll just keep going through these. In addition to the data services, we also provide community services such as the trainings and workshops and meetups and the like. You can learn a lot and engage with your local community during that. Some of the trainings that we do are around specific tools or specific methods, and it gives you, honestly, it gives you a little bit of networking and collaboration opportunities with other institutions and other researchers. Cyberseminars, as the one the next one that's coming up, which I'll give a very quick sneak preview on at the end of this, is coming up in 1 week, which is all about using our cyber infrastructure and other cyber infrastructures to support water science and reproducible water science at that. Upcoming trainings and workshops going out into September. So in April, we have the field experience in microwave remote sensing for architectural hydrology. Then on June 28th, we have the WRF hydro modeling system. And then in September, we have near surface geophysics for hydrology. Graduate students are eligible for the Pathfinder Fellowship. You have to get your proposals in by October, and then you'll find out in around December if you were to get in. And it's obviously very cool based on the pictures. We provide instrumentation discovery travel grants, and that is the opportunity to get out in the field and learn the specifics of different types of instrumentation and the like. We have the National Water Center Innovators program, which is the Summer Institute, and the key dates are there. The applications are due in November for next year's Summer Institute. Again, for graduate students. We have our 2018 biennial colloquium coming up. And then in the middle of all those events, in between all the events, you can just use our data services anytime, which is the system the HIS system that you saw from Liza, HydroShare, and then the Jupyter Hub system that's coming up next.
So I'm going to interrupt you because we did have a few questions come in while you talked about CUAHSI. So next question is from Roland, and he's asked, can you talk a little about limits on uploaded content like size, access control, and the permanence of HydroShare as an archive?
Yeah, great question. So as far as the limits go, we literally yesterday just implemented a quota system on HydroShare, which baseline gives you 20 gigabytes of space inside what we call internally the vault of data store. We're working out the quota policy for requests as far as increasing your quota goes. So if you have an NSF funded project or similarly funded project that is related to the hydrologic sciences, you have a pretty good chance of getting your quota increased. We can't promise anything, but that's what we're looking at right now. But baseline, people start with 20 gigabytes, and again, you can upload any file type to HydroShare, like anything, to store it as long as it pertains to your project and isn't anything that you shouldn't be uploading in the first place. What was the third part of that question? I'm sorry. Just remind me. There was 3 parts.
So yeah, so he's asked about, can you talk a little bit about limits on uploaded content,
Yep.
and the permanence of HydroShare as an archive?
The permanence of HydroShare as an archive. So we have a data retention sort of agreement or understanding with the NSF that as long as we are funded, we will be able to maintain the data store. And as of right now, we're funded for the next few years. The use of the iROD's underpinnings helps with that, and we also have, daily backups and all sorts of ways to restore data if there's ever an issue or anything like that. So it's a pretty strong data retention that we have.
Okay, and then the next question I can answer. Evo had asked, how about opening up the Pathfinder Fellowship to grad students beyond the U.S.? Unfortunately, we cannot do that due to our grant, because we are mostly funded by the NSF, and rules apply that we can only give out travel grants, including Pathfinder, to students at U.S. institutions. All right, and then that is the last question for now.
Okay, cool. So next week, Tony from CUAHSI is going to take you deep into the Jupyter notebook app, or the Jupyter Hub implementation that we have that connects to HydroShare and other systems, to show you some of the ways you can do some modeling, but also just primarily just around the reproducible science aspect of using a computational platform, and especially a collaborative computational platform like Jupyter, to both perform and share your work. So that's it. If there are no other questions, then I just want to thank you for attending. And you can take down my information and reach out if you have any other questions. And that's all, folks.
Yeah, we'll leave a few minutes to see if anyone else has questions. And until then, let me go over some deadlines that everyone might be interested in. So I'll take control back from you.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. Let's see. I can do that. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So we have a lot of deadlines coming up. One important one would be, of course, Mark mentioned our biennial that's coming up in end of July in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and we are accepting poster abstracts. So if you're interested in presenting a poster, deadline to submit that is May 1st, and we are offering travel grants. So first come, first serve whenever you submit your poster. And then training workshops and short courses coming up. We have one in September, near surface geophysics. Deadline to register for that is July 15th. And then we have a snow measurement field school, which we started back in January, and we're hosting one again in 2019. And we are accepting applications for that. And the deadline to submit your application is August 1st. And then we just got a question in, question from Cynthia. Is there any relationship between NSF's EarthCube effort and HydroShare?
No, not directly. We collaborate with them and we share specific types of metadata with EarthCube via what's called the schema.org implementation, but we are not directly connected, but we work together.
All right, if you have any more questions, please type it into the chat box. And just a reminder for all these events and deadlines coming up, most of our events, especially the training workshops and short courses, we do offer travel grants on a first come, first serve basis. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity if you're interested in any of these workshops coming up. All right, if there's no any more questions, I think we can call it a day. All right. Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone, for attending the webinar, and then tune in next week for Tony's. Have a good day, everybody.